Thank you guys so much for joining. I guess we'll just kind of dive straight into it. So, Christine, I know you come from an investment and asset management background in KC, similarly from asset management. So, yeah, I guess I'm curious as to why you found yourself in the built environment sector.
Yeah, so to kind of take that question holistically, why the built environment sector? So why real estate? My family background is in real estate, so I kind of grew up going to building sites and walking them and talking through deals. And so I gravitated towards real estate. I was on the lending side. I went to business school, and then I moved over to the principal side. Um, Ultimately, I moved into prop tech and thinking more about the operations because while I still think the investing side is very interesting and I do that with a different company, with Pronto, we are able to impact at such scale because we work with so many different operators, and it has a massive impact on the lived experience of all of the residents that are in the buildings. And I just find that really exciting.
Yeah. I have a little bit of a different background. I actually started in operations on the consumer and pharma side. So I worked at Johnson and Johnson. I worked at a tech startup. After business school, I went into real estate private equity. I worked at New York Life and Spear Street. And I've had other businesses and connected with Christine several years ago to start Pronto. Love real estate.
You gotta tell her about the most interesting part of your introduction, which is
Yeah,
that
please
Casey
do.
owned a hotel.
Yeah, I when I left private equity, I bought a small resort in Honduras, and
Oh,
ran
wow.
that for 3 years. And then when I moved back to the
That's so
US,
fun.
Christine and I connected again, as she was starting Pronto.
Dragged her back to New York.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's such a varied background as well. I guess you've had like bits of inspiration across the way.
Yeah, love real estate. I think it's really cool. And there's just so many different pieces of real estate that kind of need improving and working on, that there's a lot of ways to make an impact.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that leads us on to my next question, which would be what actually inspired you to start Pronto Housing? Like, what point did you realize there was a gap in the market and that you had a product that would solve that problem?
Yeah, so when I was in development asset management, I oversaw lease ups that had an affordable housing component. And despite massive demand, so think like 40,000 plus households applying for a double-digit number of units, it was taking a really long time and a really like an outsized amount of my effort and my focus in order to get those units leased. So like 18 months to fill 20 units. And I was frustrated by this, both from an asset management perspective and the budget impact of that overly slow lease up, and also from the perspective of we're in a housing crisis, a ton of qualified people applied. The limiting factor should be elevator capacity. Like you should be able to process people and just fill those units so quickly. Um, so in 2019 and then a little in 2020, I was trying to figure out what I could do to solve that problem and learned that it's about the lease up, but also in affordable housing, there's an annual compliance requirement. And it's similarly mostly and without Pronto done very manually. People are coming in
Yeah.
person, filling out forms by hand, and there's the financial piece, there's the lease up piece, but there's also residents every year going through this process, property teams having this baked into their operating budget and their staffing. And we have a better way with Pronto to make it a lot faster and easier.
And it's like really important to think about, for those 18 months, those units were vacant. And we think across the country, there are thousands and thousands of units in every city that are just vacant because of processing, which is
Mm.
crazy. It's like we can solve this problem with technology now. People don't need to sit around with empty units when there are so many people who need homes.
Yeah. And were you the first guys in that space?
So no, actually, like there are other companies that have tried to put some technology around some of what we're doing. we think we've approached it in a really different way. And also, Christine and I did the work. We actually took on projects.
Yeah,
We qualified renters ourselves.
you felt it firsthand.
We
Yeah.
have literally done thousands and thousands of applicants. And then from our experience, we didn't just like digitize it. We took that experience and said, okay, how do we make the whole thing end to end faster, even if it looks very different than it did before? So doing, this work on Pronto versus doing it on paper looks very different. You get to the same place at the end and it's faster, but it doesn't follow that traditional path. So there
Yeah,
have been others, but they approach it differently.
I would
sure.
also say that we've gone very deep and narrow in the
Yes.
income certification process versus some of the other software solutions.
Yeah.
They might have like a form library, for example, but they're not automatically ordering those forms, populating those forms, tailoring those forms to local programs, layered programs, the really sort of nitty-gritty complexity that comes with how affordable properties are financed and the regulatory agencies that have their very particular way of doing things.
Yeah, no, I can see that there is so much need for that. So one of my questions would have been, why did you choose affordable housing? But it seems very apparent. I guess, what have been the challenges? And again, there may be a lot, so maybe the most prominent ones, but what have been the challenges that you guys have faced in the affordable housing market and I guess the wider built environment space?
So maybe we both take this.
Yeah. A lot of challenges.
I would say that the number one challenge is change management on the property management side.
Yeah.
The resident change piece, we feel like we can, we have a good handle on that and a good playbook for how to get them on board. But if the property manager isn't willing to try something new and it's just like, no, I must do it on paper, I must do it in person, my residents are not capable, which honestly really discounts those residents' capabilities and those residents' time, then it can be very hard. We can't force someone to use a software platform, right? And so I think that once they get into a groove and see how much faster it is, how much easier it is, how much it lightens the overall load that they have managing as a property manager, it's great. But that initial hump of doing something new, learning something new, it can be very hard.
Yeah. That is probably the biggest challenge. And there's a variety of ways that we work through that. And we know in the built environment and PropTech, we are not the only ones that face that challenge. And it's part of why we have different business lines within the same company to address it in whatever way meets the property teams, where they're at.
Because I think that was one of the most surprising things for me coming into the industry is how much resistance there is in adopting technology. Would you say that is like an unexpected challenge for you guys? Is there any other unexpected challenges that you've come across during your journey with the business?
Yeah, I mean, since we both came from real estate, it wasn't totally unexpected for us. I mean, in both of our previous roles, we had managed the property management teams and the on-site teams. We knew a little bit of what we were getting ourselves into. I think there have definitely been some unexpected challenges. Yeah, I mean, I think even the complexity with the problem that we're solving, we knew it was very complex. It's continued, that complexity almost feels like it continues to grow. Luckily, we use software, so we build that complexity into our software and it no longer is a problem long term. But solving it in the beginning, there were a lot more pieces than we initially thought we had to add.
Naturally.
Getting deep into it, like Christine said, we're pretty narrow and pretty focused on what we're doing. Getting deep into it is what's made the difference in terms of Pronto's both product and services, but that did take a while for us to do.
Yeah.
One sort of change in terms of how the business has evolved is that when we first started, we were very focused on software. This is a tool for the property teams to manage this process faster and easier. And just elaborating on what Casey said, one thing we found is that for some property teams, even with the best software, even with support, even with great tools, they just have so much on their plate
Yeah.
outside of affordable housing
Yeah.
compliance that the work wasn't getting done and those buildings weren't in compliance, which is really critical for the financial health of those buildings. And so that's where we've really expanded on the compliance services side, where our compliance team is using our own software directly
Yes.
engaging with our customers, applicants, and residents, and taking that whole workload off of property teams so that they don't even need to worry about filling that unit. We're going to do it. And we're doing files all day, every day. We're not task switching between a bunch of other things like property managers are. And so the units get filled faster, the buildings stay in compliance.
Yes.
And it's a much more sustainable business model for property managers.
I think it's important to highlight that we think property managers have the hardest job in real estate out of anybody, right? Somehow they are meant to be a plumber and a sometimes part-time therapist, and our work is kind of like accounting, right? We call ourselves TurboTax for the affordable housing space. We're asking them to do light accounting. We're asking them to do all of these things, and it's frankly just too much for a property manager. So when we can take that off their plate, it's just like taking off accounting. Accounting's not done at the properties anymore. 30 years ago, there was an on-site accountant at every property. That doesn't exist anymore. And we think similarly, compliance will also probably be taken away and centralized. And that makes so much sense. So the property managers can focus on what they do best, which is keeping the property healthy, keeping the renters happy, the residents, and making it a good experience for people who live there.
Yeah, and I think that's what is actually really unique about you guys is that you have, because it's almost like you've seen what the issue and what the hesitancy is in affordable housing, and you've given them the solution right there and then. So I think that's what you guys have done really well. And what I found really interesting when I was having a look at that, I saw it all on your website and things. I guess just moving on a little bit, but it is interlinked, is I imagine you're expecting this question, but I'm curious to understand how AI is impacting Pronto Housing and how you've had to evolve to the product to adapt.
I think that the short answer is we want technology to do everything that doesn't have to be done by a human. So that is the product vision, and that is where we are going, and that is a lot driven by AI. That being said, where we are today, I talk to property teams that only introduced computers on site within the last couple of years. That is a little crazy, I'm not gonna lie, but it is
not unusual.
Not unusual. And most property teams, even those that maybe use property management software, certainly have computers on site. Most of them are still doing compliance on paper. So for them to go to, okay, I'm going to digitize it and then I'm going to have AI do all of it, that's a big jump. And so
I can imagine the walls just go completely up.
Yeah. A computer can't do that. AI can't do that, right? Those are the types of things that we hear. And it's our job to, one, build in AI in a really seamless way that doesn't feel like, oh, an AI agent is here even. And then also to bring our customers on that change curve.
Yeah, I think, an example of something like that is instead of having the property team make a decision or them put a question into some chatbot to make a decision, Pronto will just make the decision for them based on inputs that we have. And we're actively trying to make those decisions and take more and more decisions away. So that way the human component is talking to the resident, talking to the applicant, letting them know details about the building, right? Can you have pets? And then leaving the processing piece as automated as possible.
One other thing, so that's sort of on how we're thinking about AI on a customer facing side. There's also a business impact for Pronto as we think about how do we grow the business, how do we scale and keep our team lean. And we certainly are always looking at new tools. So one of my favorites is Gemma, which is an AI platform for presentations, for example. So you can just put in an outline and it'll spit out a really good presentation. I will say it's not perfect. We had a board deck and it was like, what did it say? It said our new office in Austin, Texas. It's like,
Yeah.
ooh, really?
Sometimes it can be a bit too automated and just, it
Yeah.
doesn't have,
Aspirational.
doesn't,
Very aspirational.
yeah,
But
100%.
we encourage our teams very much so to use different types of tools. And we do hear from some of our customers like, oh, you want your employee, like you want your team to be using AI for everything. And we're like, yes, actually. Yeah.
Certainly on the
We
engineering
call it
side.
your coworker. We're like, what does your coworker say on that?
Yeah, 100%. And I think while every industry can feel the benefits, but that was actually one of my questions is how is it impacting the team? How are they? I'm actually curious personally, like how does your team respond to adopting these different tools?
Yeah, I think we have such a culture of innovation and doing things differently. I mean, we are literally doing compliance differently than everybody else does it. And we have that built into our DNA in a way that we're kind of proud to do it a little differently if it means a better and faster experience.
Yeah.
And we take that approach with everything. We
Mhm.
have one of our team members is actually using AI. He does not know how to code. He has learned using AI to code in order to get better data reporting, right? So he's putting in what he needs, getting the code out, putting it into this tool to get really great reporting that will help us turbocharge our services side of the business. And I think there's a lot of ways where it's like, well, I don't know how to do that, but somebody can help me or my coworker can help me, as you
Such
refer
an
to it.
insane example. That's a great example.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, we're using it in all kinds of ways.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, I guess just more on a personal level, Christine, what do you do to be the best leader that you can be?
I think that one thing that is really important is, and this sounds a little cheesy, but is just being yourself. I don't, I show up every day and everyone knows how much I believe in our vision of bringing innovation to affordable housing. I'm not saying it because I'm on a podcast or because we have venture capitalists, investors. I'm saying it because the experience of people living in affordable housing is terrible. It's an underserved market and we can make that change. And then the other thing is about like how we communicate. So Casey and I are very direct communicators.
We are, yeah.
And everyone knows it and gets to know us. And it also just means that there's this culture of honesty where we're always striving for improvement in a way where everyone learns not to take things personally. So even little things like
It's not blamey. It's more of just like, how do we solve this problem?
It's
How do we
matter
get
of
through it?
fact.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
matter of fact, exactly.
yeah, like, hey, we just had this customer call, you position something in this way, and next time let's look at it, let's
Yeah.
highlight these three things like that. But we can just do it. It doesn't have to be like a formal session. We can just talk
Just
about it.
address it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people hear that with how Casey and I speak to each other.
I was going to say, we are often giving each other feedback, even in front of other people, because it's not personal. It's like we are both trying to
No.
be a little bit better every day for everyone here on our team and, affordable housing generally. And we can't do that if someone doesn't hold a mirror up to us, right? Like I'm not just going to be like, oh, you know what I'm really bad at today is X. But sometimes Christine will say,
Yeah.
we need to readjust this. I'm like,
You're
all
really
right.
bad at today, Casey.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. And
Yeah.
I think honesty and directness is such a strong leadership skill. And I think there's no room for kind of, yeah, worrying what you're doing right or doing wrong, because if someone's being direct, then it's right there. It's like I said, matter of fact. So I think that's, yeah, I think that's super
Yeah.
important.
And I think people sometimes you think of directness and feedback as like, oh, this is the only way, like that is the fact, or that's what has to happen. And sometimes it can be more of an and statement. So for example, the way we're working with our customers has changed a little bit. And someone who on our team who does the training, does an amazing job. And she's like, we need to change the training here. I will also be flexible and allow this to still happen here, but we need to change this at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, giving that feedback, but also being a little bit flexible and recognizing that change is a journey for everybody. And you can't just expect feedback, immediate change, and that we can work together to sort and get where we should be.
Amazing. And Casey, this might be one more so for you. What is your team management approach?
Yeah, so at Pronto holistically, we think of a few things that are really important to us. So one, diversity. Lots of people talk about diversity. We really define diversity. So we think of it in terms of big D and little d, right? So big D being the things you can see, race, gender, age. And then little d we think is just as equally important in order to serve our customers and the broad spectrum of customers that we have and end users we have, right? Because we have real estate teams, property teams, we have renters. Pronto is serving such a big swath of individuals in the US. So when we think of little d, educational backgrounds, personality styles, like ways of working, introvert or extrovert. I think it's
Yes,
really easy when you're hiring to want to hire people just like you and not in like a kind of
you need
vain
that
way.
mix.
But it's just it just feels easier sometimes. Like, oh, I get along with them really well. Like that's great. But and that is important. But we think that not just hiring people who are like yourself and really trying to make sure that you're filling different types of um, population bases can help make our products better. And actually, the way that we approach innovation, our teams come up with the ideas to do things differently. And
Yeah.
that, the most junior people who started, who don't even do product, for example, have given us some of our best product ideas.
Yes.
And we wouldn't have gotten those without a different perspective doing that work. So the diversity piece is a really important piece. The other thing is because of that direct style, we're very much so a meritocracy of, what gets done and, not necessarily your background before, but what you are doing today is the most important for your success at Pronto and your growth and development at Pronto. To some extent, we don't totally care what you've done before. We care what you're doing today. And that shows up in a variety of ways, so how we manage the teams, how we're constantly reorganizing the teams to be a little bit better, a little bit faster, and giving people opportunities based on what they're interested in.
I think it's probably worth talking a bit about how how metrics oriented we
Oh, yeah.
are, and how, especially in affordable housing, that's really not the norm. We hear from our customers pretty often, like,
Yeah.
oh, my property team is overwhelmed, or they're not getting their files done. And then when we say, well, how long does it take on average to do a file? How many files can each person manage? Are there different levels where, you can kind of graduate and be able to manage more? And usually they have no idea.
Yeah, they have no idea how long things take, or how many each person is doing, what the responsibility breakdown is. And we have the exact opposite approach.
Yeah.
We don't even care about what hours people work. We don't care what days of the week people work. We care about what they get done. And that offers a tremendous amount of flexibility for our teams. And I think it's a huge benefit to working at Pronto. But we're metrics driven and we know they have certain goals to hit. They hit those goals, they make their own hours and work as they please. And we're
Yeah.
constantly upping those based on different innovations that we're doing on the team, like restructuring it. Okay, now we can double that load here. We add this new feature, we can add a little bit more to their plate. And I think that works well for everyone. I mean, the renters certainly love spending less time and getting through things quicker, especially if you're an applicant. You don't want to wait 18
Oh
months.
yeah,
You
100%.
want 3 weeks or 2 weeks, right? And just like, let's get it done. It's the bottleneck is how long it takes them to get paperwork sort of thing. And they're able to do that by kind of focusing on those hard numbers. Yeah.
That's so interesting as well. I mean, just what you were saying about the outputs focus that you guys have. So I'm curious personally, and we post a yearly salary survey. You may have seen it, and it kind of speaks to what candidates and what people in the market are wanting from benefits packages and things. So do you guys offer completely flexible working so they can work 4 days a week, or
Totally.
how does that work?
on our compliance services
Yeah,
team. So
that's right.
we have kind of three different groups. We've got engineering,
Yeah.
compliance services, and then like the business team that does implementations, customer success, basically, yeah, everything on the business side, sales. And so
Those are
different expectations.
Yeah, those are more kind of 9 to 5-ish, like regular work day, because that's
Right.
when our customers are in the office, right?
Makes sense.
They're customer facing. For those that are on the compliance team, processing the files using the Pronto software, we let them choose the number of days. They just
That's
have to get it
amazing.
done, and yeah,
Yeah.
however they do that. And we know people have very flexible schedules, and sometimes people take a couple weeks vacation. They get everything done beforehand, which is also really nice, right? And you can go on vacation without really thinking about some of it. We were joking around that we had one employee last year who worked very, very hard to finish his entire goal by the end of November. So he took all of December off.
Oh my goodness. But he got
And
it done, so
but he
that was
got
the
it
reward.
done. Yeah, and
Yeah, that's so
that
interesting.
was it. Now he could have worked December and, maybe hit a higher threshold, to Christine's point earlier,
Yeah.
but he was like, I want December off.
He was
So
having a long Christmas.
yeah.
Oh, bless. Okay, great. So I guess talking about future plans and things like that, what are the long-term plans? What does the next year hold for you guys as a business?
So our North Star is making affordable housing accessible. So that hasn't changed, and we will continue to push both on the compliance services side, taking that whole function off of property teams, and on the product side of just continuing to chip away at that mission.
Yeah, that's great. And how about the future of the US built environment? What do you think is going to be important this year and going into 2026?
So and there are a lot of policy, there's a lot of policy movement in the affordable
Yes.
housing space. So I think that there's a lot of noise right now, right? The big beautiful bill just passed and actually expanded LIHTC in a permanent way, the low income housing tax credit, which was a major win for affordable housing. So that is actually very exciting, and we'll start to see the impact of that in the first allocations will be in 2026. So then those buildings will come online in 2028, 2029. That being said, that is federal housing. Overall, I am still a firm believer that there's a trend of more and more local programs and basically more and more communities understanding how critical affordable housing is to society's health, basically, right?
And community development. And people are looking at these local programs in really creative ways. So it's not just, oh, here's some money to add some affordable housing units. They're saying, okay, if you add some percentage of affordable housing units, we'll let you build 2 stories higher, or we'll change your density, requirements that you have. And they're getting really creative. They still have all of the same requirements that we do. So we can help them navigate some of those. But those local programs are going to change how communities work, and the ones who get it right are really going to have a positive impact pretty quickly.
Overall, almost every market is still undersupplied for affordable housing. There's different studies, but the one that's most quoted is that there is a shortage of 7 million units. And so rents will continue to increase, especially on the market rate side, and there will continue to be outsized demand for the existing supply and even the supply that's coming online. So where you do see a lot of development and softening of rents, it's usually been pretty temporary, just as those buildings are leasing up. So we saw that in Austin, for example, in Texas. So overall, we need to build more housing. I will say that's all on the multifamily side. And on the office side, I'm a firm believer in return to office, but yeah, we don't do anything in the office space, so we'll leave that to the experts.
Yeah. I think more and more teams are adopting technology and getting on board, even if they weren't. Even the teams that just got computers a couple of years ago, I think people are realizing, okay, AI is coming for us, like technology, we need to do something. So I hope that more and more companies like Pronto in the PropTech space, I think they're property owners are more open to talking to them
Yeah.
about it, even if they were more resistant 2 years ago, because they're like, okay, we've got to do something here. And they hear about success stories from their competitors. And they're like, wait, you saved all that money? Wait, we should do that too. So I think
100%.
that's an exciting thing for PropTech.